Hi, hello, it's me, Eva. I'm back with another Pauper video. Today, I'm playing Turbo Fog. I don't know why it's called Turbo. It's not a very fast deck, but I do know why it's called Fog. And that's because we play every fog we can. Never take any combat damage. Wait a bunch of turns. Play this card. It's called Stream of Thought. It can mill as many cards as I like if I have the mana. And then when my opponent has no cards in the deck, well, then I win the game. Hooray! It's a pretty fun deck to play in the sense of, you know, you have to like watching people go... But once they're done making that weird noise, then suddenly the library is gone, and that's fun for me. Anyways, let's get into the first match. We have a bunch of draw spells. We need draw spells. Whenever we cast a fuck away, we're going down a card, so we need spells that put us up cards. That's the whole plan of the deck. And then we have Weather the Storm. I also have some ramp. The only problem with this hand is I have no green mana, but you know, I can draw it. I can definitely draw it. I feel like I always go first, so here's a die roll. I call even, and it's even. See? Actually, my opponent called uneven, because if you roll, you should let your opponent make the call. Otherwise, that seems a little, you know, cheaty. I play an island, my opponent plays a mountain, and a Voldarian Epicure. I take 1 damage going to a 19, and my opponent makes a blood token. I've never actually played this deck before in an actual match like this. Well, I played once against Sparkles. But I don't know what this matchup is like. I assume it's one of my better matchups. My opponent attacks for 1. I don't feel like using a fog on 1/1/1, so I go to 18, and my opponent plays a Faithless Looting without playing a land first. So he can't actually madness a Fiery Temper, let's say. My opponent then goes ahead and ends up discarding 2 mountains, which is insane to me that he wouldn't play a mountain first then, because he's gonna need a second mountain. And he does play the second mountain into another Epicure Voldarian thingy. It deals a damage when it comes into play, and I'm down to 17. However, I'm feeling pretty good. There's no sneaky snaggers in the graveyard, no madness shenanigans, and even though he has 2 blood tokens, that's not so scary. I play another land and pass the turn. Basically, all cards in my deck are instants, so I will always just play land go. My opponent plays a land, attacks for 2. I take it, I go down to 15. And my opponent plays a Gotta Snipe. Gotta Snipe deals 2 damage every time he plays an instant or sorcery. And I can't use my Fox on that kind of damage. So I counter it with this Arcane Denial, which in the next upkeep lets me draw 1 card and my opponent draw 2. Then I have to Island Cycle a Lauren Revealed because I need to find a land every turn. I cannot afford to miss land drops. There's some really cool tricks you can do with Arcane Denial, but in this case, it's just to counter the spells that I'm actually afraid of, and then hopefully fill my opponent's hand up with creatures that can only attack that my Fox can negate. Generally, Arcane Denial is scary because it gives your opponent more cards to use against you, but like, if it's more creatures, who cares? My opponent then attacks for another 2, and I go down to 13. 13 is kind of a bad life total to have, because with the amount of burn my opponent can have in hand, there's a chance he could just take all of that life away without attacking once, meaning all the Fox I have in my hand do nothing. My opponent plays another Faithless Looting, discarding another 2 lands and playing a 4th land. My opponent has drawn a lot of lands, and that's a good thing for me. In my opponent's end step, I play a Frantic Inventory, which draws a card, and then draws a card for every card named Frantic Inventory in your graveyard. And then I play another one. That nets me a total of 3 cards into my hand in his end step. Then for my turn, I play a land, and you'll never guess what I do. I actually consider playing a spell, but I pass. In my end step, my opponent plays a Lightning Bolt targeting me. It looks a little weird because you're almost untapped, and I just take it going down to 10, which means Fire Blast plus a little burn could probably take me out by now. Then my opponent untaps, and at this point, I don't think I can afford taking any more damage, even if it's just a couple of 1/1s attacking me. So my opponent attacks for the 2 1/1s, and I take both the damage and go to 8. And then my opponent starts using his blood tokens to discard cards from his hand to draw new ones. But these are still more lands he's discarding. He has drawn so many lands. There's like 6 lands in his graveyard 7 lands in his graveyard by now. That's not great. Anyways, he passes the turn, and I play a growth spiral. It draws a card, and then it puts a land from my hand onto the battlefield. I choose Simic Growth Chamber, which bounces a land to my hand. Simic Growth Chamber is really good because 1, it's sort of sneaky card advantage, and 2, it ensures 2 land drops in a row by returning a land to my hand. So it's really good since I want to make a land drop every turn. Then for my turn, I play an island and preordain, scrying 2, then drawing a card. I put 1 on the top and 1 on the bottom. So I actually played a spell in my own turn, and then I play a land and pass the turn, because why stop a good thing? My opponent throws another lightning bolt at me, and at this time, I don't like it. I don't want to go that low, so I play another Frantic Inventory. This one draws 3 cards because I have 2 in the graveyard. And then I play a Weather the Storm. A 2-mana instant that gains 3 life, but it has Storm, so it copies itself for every spell cast this turn. That's why my opponent kept throwing 1 lightning bolt at me in my end step to not build up a higher storm count. This does put me up to 20, but then the lightning bolt puts me back down to 17. And I have to discard an impulse in my end step. It's my opponent's turn. He attacks for another 2, and I have to decide, is it time to start fucking these little guys? I have to find a better way to say that, but I do cast a Tangle and fuck them this turn so they don't deal any damage, and they won't untap on my opponent's next turn. Then my opponent plays a Grab the Prize, discarding a Fiery Temper. Then that Fiery Temper has Madness, so you can cast it when you discard it, then targets me, which is a total of 5 damage, bringing me down to 12, which is a lot. Ow! My opponent's doing really well, playing around the Weather the Storm, burning as little as possible, not building up a storm count, and waiting till I'm tapped out. I play a life gain land, it comes into play tapped, and gains me a life, and makes both green and blue. So I'm back up to 13 thanks to my land, and then I do what I always do, and pass the turn to my opponent. Fuck doesn't play that slow, it's a pretty simple play pattern, but it does take a lot of turns to win the game, so the matches can go very long. My opponent then plays a Grab the Prize, discarding a Sneaky Snacker, and I counter it with another Arcane Denial, which will let my opponent draw 2 in the beginning of the next upkeep, and me 1. He passes the turn, I cast the Behold the Multiverse, it scries 2, and then it draws 2. I put 1 on the bottom, and then I draw 2 cards, because you know that's what the card says. Now, all my fogs aren't that important in this matchup. My opponent's only played 2 1/1s. So it's not the best matchup to be using Fox in. However, Weather the Storm is really good. I play a Simic Growth Chamber, but I changed my mind and I put it back in my hand. That wasn't it bouncing itself to my hand. Instead, I want to first cast this Lorien Reveal to draw 3 to see if I can find a different land I would rather play this turn. But I do end up playing the same land, and then I pass the turn. My opponent attacks for 2. And since I assume he's not gonna be playing a lot more creatures, I might as well start using these Tangles and Fogs on these 2 1/1s. Then my opponent plays Highway Robbery, which, well, you can discard a card or sacrifice a land to draw 2. The cool thing about it is it's not an additional cost to playing the card, so I have to say whether it resolves before he actually gets to do it, and that way I can't gain extra value from it. It resolves, and because he draws extra cards, he gets to put Sneaky Snacker from the graveyard into play. I do not care about Sneaky Snacker. I have so many Fogs. At the end of my opponent's turn, I play the 4th Frantic Inventory. This one draws 4 cards, and then it's my turn. Which shows me my opponent doesn't have a lot of burn, because I was tapped out, and he didn't take the chance to throw any burn at my face. So now's my time to really turbo in, find that Stream of Thought, and mill my opponent out. Or I could until I Behold the Multiverse and set up even more draw spells. Well, this is the problem with the deck. I've kind of won. I haven't entirely won. There are ways my opponent could win at this point, but I just have to dig, draw, fog until I get my Stream of Thought and can mill my opponent out. This turn, I discard a Moment's Peace because it has Flashback, and I have enough Fox in my hand to survive I don't know how many turns. My opponent's creatures don't untap, so he just attacks for 2. I cast the good old regular Fog. I love the art on that Fog, it's so pretty. Then my opponent plays yet another Faithless Looting. I'm really glad I countered that Gutter Snipe, otherwise each of these like draw spells would be dealing 2 damage, and I would be at negative a lot of life at this point. He discards even more lands. My opponent does not draw a lot of burn spells. Then he plays the 3rd Epicure of Blood, or Voldarian Epicure. I can't remember all the names perfectly all the time, and I'd rather show you than redo the take. He gets a blood token, I go down to 12, then I cast my Simic Growth Spiral to play a land. Oh my god, this take is awful. But it doesn't matter because I have a Weather the Storm, gaining me so many life once more. My opponent played a couple of spells, I play a couple of spells, and we're just counting it out, arguing, and I put myself up to 28 with a full hand, and it becomes my turn now. I remember to put my Weather the Storm into my graveyard. Then I cast the Beholder Multiverse, because I want to make sure I have enough fogs, and I'm looking for that Stream of Thought to finally end this game. I don't find it yet, however, but I have both counter spells and fogs in my hand, so I'm not that scared. I play a land that gains me a life, going up to 29, and my opponent has a mountain to climb, and he's already used a fair bit of burn, so I'm impressed if he can make it back from here. My opponent attacks with everything. I have to throw away this Tangle. It's the Spider-Man one. It was all I could get my hands on at the time, okay? Also, I actually think it's kind of fun that Spider-Man like whips people up. So that is a fun card. My opponent tries to play a Gutter Snipe. I realize that's the one card I could lose to. So I quickly play an Arcane Denial, making sure it doesn't resolve. And then in my opponent's end step, I play a Beholder Multiverse. We know what that does. Scries 2, draws 2. I gotta refill my hand after throwing away so many cards. In my upkeep, my opponent quickly draws 2. I draw 1 from the Arcane Denial and then 1 from my draw step. The 2 my opponent drew was also for the Arcane Denial, just in case. For my turn, I'll cast a Preordain, scrying 2, and I see the Stream of Thought, which I do need if I want to win this game. I can't actually mill my opponent out in one go, but I have another Stream of Thought in my deck, and I also kind of want to put some of the cards in my graveyard back into my deck. So I cast a Stream of Thought, replicating it 3 times. Whenever I cast it, I also get to put a card from my graveyard back into my deck and shuffle my own deck. So I mill my opponent for a whole bunch, not nearly enough to actually win the game this turn, and I put a Frantic Inventory back into my deck, along with the Lorien Reveal, because I want some draw spells that I can draw going forward, which will help me find the other Stream of Thought. My opponent then wants to show everything he milled, and there's no flashback cards. There's one Sneaky Snacker. So other than going first, my opponent drawing a lot of lands, I'm also just really lucky with what I mill. Also, all my Frantic Searches were the top half of my deck. I'm a lucky little potato today. My opponent then cracks his blood token. This allows him to get the other Sneaky Snacker back from his graveyard. And to be fair, he does have 7 damage on board, which is a lot. However, most of it doesn't untap due to how the Spider-Man Tangle works. My opponent attacks for 2. I feel like, I'm at 29. I don't need to use a fog. I also didn't keep any mana up, so I'm allowing him to resolve everything. This is Keswick Flame Breather. It's the smaller Gutter Snipe. Instead of doing 2 damage every time you cast it into a sorcery, he does 1. So now all my opponent's draw spells will start hurting me. But it's probably too little too late. I have 27 life and I just need to find 1 Stream of Thought to mill my opponent out. And you can see my opponent counting out the cards because I asked the question no Magic player wants to hear. How many cards left in your library? I play a Simic Growth Chamber, and with it I can return the land that gains life to my hand. That way I can gain even more life. My opponent attacks with everything, which is a total of 9 power. But I have, somewhere down here, I have a Moment's Peace I can flashback. It prevents all combat damage, costs 3 when I flashback it. My opponent then plays a Lava Dart, which first I take 2 damage off of the 2 Keswick Flame Breathers and 1 damage off of the Lava Dart itself.
And then my opponent passes the turn because he knows Weather the Storm is a scary card. I play a Growth Spiral, drawing a card, putting the life gain land into play, gaining 1 life, going up to 25. Then I play Weather the Storm and my opponent concedes.
Winning always feels good. However, winning does something malicious to you. It makes you think you have a good matchup because, you know, that didn't feel difficult as I played against it, but you have to realize how many lands my opponent drew and that he only played 1 Gutter Snipe in all of that. I do realize that all these Gutter Snipes and Keswick Flame Breathers are what's gonna kill me if I lose this one. So in goes a bunch of counter spells. If a Gutter Snipe hits the board, I can't deal with it because, and this is my biggest mistake. I didn't put Hydro Blast or Blue Elemental Blast in my sideboard. I don't know why. I just didn't do it. Out goes 2 Preordains. They don't help me with my Weather the Storm. All they do is help me set up my starting hand. So what if I just draw a good starting hand, you know? Well, I don't know why Impulse is in the deck. So it's always going out when I sideboard. And then 1 Fog because I didn't feel like I actually needed very many Fogs in the matchup. And I play a lot of them. My opponent, however, takes out all the Sneaky Snaggers. They don't do anything. So that makes sense because they're just gonna run into a Fog. And then 1 Grab the Prize and Faithless Looting. I don't know why those specifically. I'd have to ask my opponent. But in goes, and this makes a lot of sense, a whole bunch of Red Elemental Blasts and a whole bunch of Pyroblasts. The one good thing about those is they can't stop Weather the Storm. And here's my hand. This is a sort of sketchy hand. I don't like seeing Stream of Thought in my starting hand. However, Lorien Reveal is great. If I don't draw lands, it can find me my next land. If I draw lands, it's a huge draw spell. Weather the Storm is amazing. It can win me this match. My opponent has a hand. It's full of red cards. Help me.
My opponent starts playing a mountain, but no Epicure Voldarian Blood thingy, which is great for me. It means I can play my tapped land, gain a life, and not have to worry too much about what's gonna happen. However, for turn 2, it's a Grab the Prize, discarding a Faithless Looting. That's another 2 damage to me, bringing me down to 19. And my opponent draws 2 cards, essentially using no resources to just deal 2 free damage to me. It could have been worse if that had been a Sneaky Snagger, or if it had been like something with Madness. I play another tap land that gains a life, and I'm back to 20 already. The problem here is that the tap land shows my opponent I don't have a counterspell, so he can freely play this Keswick Flame Breather. Response, I choose to go find an island I can put into my hand with Lorien Revealed, and this also allows him to freely cast the Voldarian Epicure, dealing me 1 damage, putting me down to 19, and getting himself a blood token. Now, I can't actually ever kill this Keswick Flame Breather because I don't have Hydroblast or Blue Elemental Blast, so we're gonna have to find a way to heal past these 1 damage I'll take from every spell he casts this game. I cast a Preordain, looking at the top 2 because I want to find either a land or some sort of draw spell, or even better, counter magic for whatever comes next. And what I assume comes next would be a Gutter Snipe, so I need to at least bluff the counter magic if I don't have it. My opponent attacks for 2. I choose to take it going down to 17 because if a Gutter Snipe is cast, I have to get rid of it. And he does cast the Gutter Snipe. And the problem is, I don't have a counter spell, so I have to let it resolve. All I can do is cast my Frantic Inventory, drawing 1 card. Now every spell my opponent casts deals 3 damage, so I'm gonna need some very, very good Weather the Storms to win this game now. But I cast a Simic Growth Chamber, returning a tapped land to my hand, and that's another tapped land. I'm still trying to bluff these counter spells. My opponent attacks with everything. I have to use a Tangle. I can't afford taking 4 damage here, but that taps me out. And now my opponent can see that all his burn spells are free to go to my face, and they deal an additional 3 damage. 17 life, but that's not a guarantee I will survive this turn. First, my opponent plays a Grab the Prize, discarding a land. This is very good news. It means I only take the 3 damage from Keswick Flame Breather and Gutter Snipe. The Grab the Prize itself won't deal any damage to me. However, it does let my opponent draw 2 cards right now. I go down to 14, which is bad. And then my opponent plays a Lightning Bolt, targeting my face. This deals 5 damage, 6 damage, putting me down to 8. And then my opponent sacrifices 2 lands, casting Fire Blast at me. This puts me down to 1. And I'm tapped out, remember that? So this Pyro Blast trying to destroy his own creature. It can destroy a creature if it's blue, so you can cast it even on red creatures. It just won't destroy it. It triggers the Gutter Snipe. I die.
Ow. Okay, so the thing about his deck is it can win very fast. So if he resolves a Gutter Snipe, I'm dead. Fuck, doesn't stop Gutter Snipe. I will continue to not change my sideboard because I still don't have Blue Elemental Blast in my sideboard. Game 3 and this is my hand. It's kind of slow. A lot of lands. I can deal with the first Gutter Snipe and I have land drops for 4 turns. It's kind of what I want. I don't mind not having Fox. He doesn't attack me very much. This is once again a bunch of red spells. If you are a red player, you will know whether this hand is good. But it looks like it's on fire and it's scary. Help me, help me.
I don't actually need help. What I need is 1 life off of my starting land that's tapped. And then my opponent responds in kind with, you'll never guess it, Epicure of Voldaren Blood Token making. Yes, I take 1 damage, go back down to 20, and then I do what I always do and say, land go. My opponent, with no patience, attacks me for 1, and then plays a Highway Robbery. This plots a Highway Robbery. Then in his end step, I cast Frantic Inventory, drawing a single card. For my turn, I play a land and say go. That's mostly what you do with this deck. On my opponent's turn, he plays a land. Once more attacks me for 1, bringing me down to 18. We're kind of seeing some of the same play patterns over and over here, but that's because the decks are so consistent. My opponent hasn't played any of the things that deal damage whenever he plays a spell, so this Faithless Looting is fine. However, him discarding 2 burn spells is bad, and one of them has Madness, so he can burn me with them. I use here, and I think it's wrong, an Arcane Denial on a burn spell, because that's now a counter spell I don't have for one of his pingers. However, I needed to draw cards to find lands and fogs. But I do find the land thanks to the Arcane Denial drawing me a card in my next upkeep. So I can play it and say land go. Also, there's a second reason I wanted to use that Arcane Denial, even though it was wrong because it only took off 3 damage. But my opponent attacks for 1, and then he gets ready to do the thing I don't like. Play one of his pingers, a Keswick Flame Breather. But I have a counter spell on my hand that I can use on it, meaning the Arcane Denial is fine to use for draw. I am probably still gonna regret it if I see any more Gutter Snipes or Keswick Flame Breathers, but you know, we'll just assume my opponent doesn't have everything all the time. My opponent plays another Voldaren Epicure, making a blood token, dealing 1 more damage to me, bringing me down to 16. He had to think for a while because playing 2 spells enables a Weather the Storm, which I then do play. It's not a great Weather the Storm, but I felt like I needed to spend my mana. It also brings me up to 28. But I could have probably gotten it even bigger if I'd waited a few turns. But if you don't spend mana, well then maybe you won't get to cast the spell later. Then in my turn I cast a Frantic Inventory because I need a land. I draw 2 cards off of it, but I do not find a land. And I'm stuck at 4 lands. This is terrible. I really do need to hit all those land drops because I need to play a giant Stream of Thought in the end. And I also need to be able to counter spells and play draw spells. My opponent gets to play a Keswick Flame Breather. And I'm in this sad situation where I have to let it resolve because I don't have a counter spell for it even though I need it. And he has the 3rd one as well. 2 of those are as powerful as 1 Gutter Snipe. So now he is threatening, even if I fuck all day, to burn me to death with just spells that don't even burn. I play another Weather the Storm, bringing me up to 35. 35 is a good life total, but 2 Keswick Flame Breathers, especially if they make another friend, can kill me. And it's another turn where I don't find a land. I need to really start finding some way to dig for my lands, or just draw them off of the top. Because it's very bad for me to just not be able to react to anything. My opponent now attacks for 4, and I play a Fog. And now I'm finally starting to get some value out of having all these fogs in my deck, which feels good. My opponent then casts the Highway Robbery that he plotted earlier. Plot lets you pay a plot spell, and then you can play the spell for free on one of your turns later. It deals 2 damage to me because he has 2 Keswick Flame Breathers, which deal a damage whenever you play a spell. And then he gets to discard a card and draw 2 cards. Now, it is a long way to burn me down with just these kind of like cycling spells. So there's a chance if I can gain some more life and hit my counterspell right, I still live. But it's really important right now that he doesn't gain too much card advantage. So this grab the prize, discarding a Lava Dart, that's exactly the kind of play I don't want to see. It deals 2 damage plus another 2 from the Keswick Flame Breathers. And it puts a Lava Dart in the graveyard, which can also trigger the Keswick Flame Breathers, because it has a flashback cost of sacrificing 1 land. And he goes all out on the burn, even hits me with a Lightning Bolt. And even though I have a Dispel, he has a Pyroblast. And that Pyroblast also deals 2 damage, and then the Lightning Bolts deals another 3. So I took like 7 damage from all that, and I'm down to 22. But wait, there's more. He sacrifices a land to flashback the Lava Dart, dealing another 3 damage to me. I really need to find some lands or draw spells that would be really good right now. Like fogging the creatures, I definitely need to do that. I had a Foretell card that I can cast. It scries 2 and draws 2. And I see both a counterspell and a land off of it. And the land is really good because it's a Simic Growth Chamber, which I can play and return another land to my hand. So now I have another land drop for the next turn as well. The only downside is it comes into play tapped. So I keep 2 mana open, which I need to use on a Tangle. I cannot afford taking 4 damage from the creatures, which means my opponent is free to play all the spells in his hand without thinking about stuff like Weather the Storm or counter spells. So I cast my Tangle, all the creatures are tapped, and they will remain tapped. However, my opponent then flashbacks a Faithless Looting. There it is. And that deals 2 damage to me, bringing me down to 17. And he draws 2 cards, and then he discards 2 cards. That isn't the worst turn. He could have done so much more if he had a bunch of burn. Especially because this is one of the turns where I don't have the ability to cast a Weather the Storm. And then he Lava Darts me, another 3, and I'm all the way down from like, what was it, 32 to 14. I need another Weather the Storm. With the Simic Growth Chamber, I returned a regular island to my hand. I could have returned the land that actually gives me a life when I play it, but that also enters tapped, so it will be very costly to do. But I need all the life gain I can get. My opponent plays more draw spells in red, and they ping me for 2 every time, so it's sort of like killing me with draw spells, which is every player's dream. In my opponent's end step, see, he doesn't play more burn spells because I could have a Weather the Storm open now. I play a Growth Spiral, which allows me to put this Bayuga bug into play. Sadly, I don't exile anything with flashback because he already cast all of it. He could also cast it in response because it's all like sacrifice lands to cast them. And then I passed the turn. I missed yet another land drop, so I had to just pass without having a land, but I have hit a good amount of mana now, so as long as my opponent doesn't draw too many cards and I find a way to gain some life, this game is very much on. I cast a Moment's Peace to negate everything, all the damage that my opponent's creatures would do. They already spend a turn being tapped, so the Tangle isn't in effect anymore. For my turn, I didn't play a land and just passed the turn, because everything is an instant. My opponent attacks, and I flashback my Moment's Peace, once again denying all the damage. My opponent still has like 4 cards in hand, and I only have 9 life, so all he has to do is play correctly around Weather the Storm to win. I find a land that gains me 1 life, and I'm back up to 10. In my end step, my opponent has to consider, does he want to start helping burn me down? And he plays a Lava Dart. That's 3 damage for 1 mana. It's basically a Lightning Bolt with flashback. I haven't found any more Weather Storms, and maybe the ones I cast too early in the game. I could have waited for a very big turn to gain even more life. My opponent attacks for 4, you'll never guess it. I fog, and my opponent's creatures deal no combat damage. However, at 7 against a burn deck, we have to see what happens. First, he casts Faithless Looting. That deals 2 damage to me from the Keswick Flame Breathers. That's a huge problem. I don't want him to draw any more cards and get card selection, so I use a counter spell to counter the Faithless Looting, because I'm afraid that he'll just draw enough burn to kill me, and I hope he has some sort of duds in his hand, Surprise, he probably doesn't, because that's not how Burn works. But he doesn't cast any more spells in my end step, since he's afraid of Weather the Storm and doesn't want to help build up a storm count. So for his turn, he floats to red mana, sacrifices the mountains, and plays Fire Blast. I counter it with a Dispel, he counters it with a Pyroblast, I counter it with Arcane Denial, and it's countered. I still take 2 damage per spell he casts, so I'm down to 1. And now I just have to hope he forgot about the Lava Dart in his... Oh, he did not forget. And I die. Good game.
It is a lot to ask that 8 specific spells in your opponent's deck have to be countered. Kazakh Flame Breather and Gutter Snipe are massive issues for this deck. I mean, I could out-life gain them if I just drew all the Weather the Storm. Sadly, for that final match, because I kept missing land drops, I couldn't play enough draw spells because I didn't get draw spell. It was a whole mess. But I can't stress enough, I wish I had Blue Elemental Blast. Anyways, like, subscribe the video, go to my Ko-Fi, give me money. I want to make more videos. This is fun. Also, you know what? Tell me what decks you want to see. Maybe I can make them. Bye!